All right, let's fire up the cameras and go live and all those good things. Perfect timing, Councillor. Are we live on TV? Don't need to wait for the voice from Zoom to tell us that we're live? Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're meeting on October 3rd, 1 p.m. in Council Chambers for the Transportation Standing Committee. I'm your host, Wei Mason. Thank you all for joining us today. First, I would like to start with an acknowledgement that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. And it's very important today. We raised the flag today for Treaty Day, which was delayed because of Fiona damage, and we're also right after Truth and Reconciliation Day on Friday. We were pleased to raise the flag. We acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties that were signed in this territory, and we recognize that we're all treaty people. And we look forward to the rescheduled full events for Treaty Day, the church service and the parade and all that stuff that should happen in a couple of weeks. So I'm looking around the room today, and it looks like we have a full house. Vice Chair Councillor Stoddart is here, Councillor Kent, Mancini, Russell, and Outdet are here, and we are joined as always by Councillor Hensby, who I believe knows he's not on this committee, but comes to everyone, and we appreciate his input. And Colin Taylor is our solicitor, and Katie Campbell, our legislative assistant today. So I'll look for an approval of the minutes of August 25th and September 14th, 2022. Moved by Vice Chair Stoddart, seconded by Councillor Russell. Is there any discussion of the minutes of September 14th or August 25th? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Well, we're off to a good start today. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. First, we'll go to the clerk, Madam Clerk.
There are no additions or deletions today.
That's how we like it on a sunny October afternoon. No additions and deletions. Do any members of the committee have any additions and deletions? Seeing none, I'll take a mover and a seconder for the order of business as presented. Moved by Councillor Russell, seconded by Vice Chair Stoddart. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. There's no business arising from the minutes, so we move to item 5, which is calls for declaration of conflicts of interest. What are you looking at me for? So other than Councillor Kent sticking her tongue out at me, we have no conflicts of interest today. That's just routine council conflict. Thank you for that, everybody. So we'll move on. There are no motions of reconsideration, none of rescission. There are no consideration of deferred business and no notices of tabled matters. We'll move to correspondence 10.1. Madam Clerk.
Correspondence has been received for item 10.3.1 and has been circulated to members.
Thank you very much. General correspondence is done. Are there any petitions, Madam Clerk?
No petitions.
Thank you. Are there any petitions to be presented by members of the committee? Seeing none, that brings us to 10.3. The nice people who've been waiting while we all updated our Windows computers, the good people from the Porters Lake Business Association. If you could, well, I'll turn the floor over to you. If you could introduce yourselves, and you have 10 minutes, I believe. Is it 10 minutes, Katie? 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Councillor Mason. I'm really happy to be here today representing the Porters Lake Business Association. The PLBA is the smallest and newest business improvement district in the HRM. I'm also very proud to be here with our representation from the federal government. Daryl Sampson, Peter Day is here representing Daryl Sampson. David Hensby, our councillor in our district. Gerard Dugas, a prominent businessman and from our area, and Kate Zeros, who has been working diligently with the PLBA for since our establishment back in, well, actually 2020. So really, just to sort of kick this off, back in the spring of 2021, the business community in the Porters Lake area, specifically the Porters Lake Business Business Association wanted to engage, as I say, we see Porters Lake as being a growing community. So in order to have, a planned development in the area as HRM continues to grow. So back in 2001, we engaged WSP Consulting to help us develop an infrastructure improvement area for the area. So that was sort of an overview before I get into my slide presentation. As I say, WSP has reviewed the HRM Regional Municipal Planning report, the land use bylaws pertaining as it pertains to District 8 and 9, Porters Lake Watershed Service Study, the Porters Lake Active Transportation Plan, HRM Active Transportation Plan, and the HRM Integrated Mobility Plan. So all those studies were reviewed in coming up with with our plan. I'm happy to have circulated that to Katie, so everybody I think should have a full plan, and my presentation this afternoon is basically a very high level of that plan. So without further ado, I'll get into that. And I'll ask anybody who's in the gallery to make sure they chime up if there's something that I miss. So the Porters Lake Business Association was established we were incorporated back, or actually we were in August of 2019, we were given the approval to move ahead with the Business Improvement District, and we incorporated in 2019 as a society. So our area, if you're familiar with the number 7 highway on the eastern shore, our district is sort of illustrated there. So we really run from Alps Drive, sort of in the west, down to the very end of, down to Stella Drive, sort of in the east. So that's our district. So we also go a little bit up the Porters Lake Station Road and down Stella Drive as well. So that is the size of our district. So it's relatively large. The main commercial section, if you know Porters Lake at all, would be sort of from the Williams Porter Connector down sort of to the Stella Drive area. Ooh, and this is, hopefully, oops, I couldn't play that. I don't know if I can go back or not. Oh, yes. So we did have a little video. Unfortunately, I guess I can't play that, but it sort of shows the main business district there in the Porters Lake area. So as I say, this area continues to grow. So since the video won't play, I'll move on to our existing conditions. As I say, we're on the number 7 trunk. We do not have any sidewalks or paved shoulders. Porters Lake is very much a car-oriented area, that lacks human scale. So really what we want to, as we think in terms of the development of the Porters Lake area, we want to create it, as I say, we see it as a growing area, growing community. So we want to be focused around people. So being able to streetscape, and enhance the area for pedestrian and stuff like that. So Porters Lake is located less than 25 kilometers from the Metro Halifax-Dartmouth area. Upon arrival, visitors should feel an immediate connection and sense of place to the area. So that's really the purpose of the study, is that we want to create a feeling of a village and a community. Again, our existing condition, when you're driving down, there's no crosswalks, there's no sidewalks. So the image of a community is fundamentally important to its economic well-being, attractive to visitors as well as encouraging people to come back. Creating cohesive streetscape design will allow residents to take pride in our community. So here you kind of see the Tim Hortons. So if you come into Porters Lake in the morning, that whole area on the number 7 highway gets quite congested. So again, when you think in terms of bus stops, we do have an express bus that comes out to our area, and it stops actually at the mall. So this is a current bus stop located at the shopping center. And again, current wayfinding signage is really what you see there. And again, proposed improvements to facilitate improvements to the village core that will help foster community-led and pedestrian scale and encourage residents and visitors to spend time in the village. A multi-use pathway is proposed in the location of the existing grassy median between the streets right-of-way and the Porter's Lake Center parking lots. This will require the removal and replacement of the existing lights in the right-of-way in addition to the proposed multi-use pathway. The exit shoulders on the north side of Trunk 7 is proposed to be paved to access as an accessory rural active transportation facility. The paved shoulder will provide designated space for motor vehicles for both on-road cyclists to travel with when bypassing the village core, and for pedestrians to use as way to travel between destinations on the north side of the road. So, and again, proposed improvements, pedestrian access. We are proposing a new multi-use pathways proposed along the south side of Trunk 7 and the existing west segment of Stella Drive, providing a connection between the carpool parking lot to the Blueberry Run, which you see right down here. The multi-use pathway is recommended to be a minimum of 3 meters wide with a rolled curve at driveway access points. Conflict areas between the vehicles and active transportation users should be clearly marked using signals and painted pavement. The multi-use pathway will provide a comfortable and direct route for pedestrians to walk from one end of the village to the other and to access other future AT connections. Again, we're looking at improvements to our bus stops. So we're also recommending, rather than just an open area, sort of a sheltered area at the exit, at the existing 9079 bus stop. We also feel in the area, since it's a number 7, even though there's a school on one side and the traffic during school hours, the speed limit is 30 kilometers an hour, we do not have access to crosswalks. So marked crosswalks accessing the Trunk 7 within the village core are recommended to be explored as part of the crosswalk review to provide improved access between the origins and destinations on the south and north side of the road. And the other thing, proposed improvements would again be looking at better wayfinding signage. Again, when you're looking at a business district, we're looking at it, wayfinding signage off by Alps Road and down beyond Stella Drive, and when you intersect off the Porter's Lake Connector Road. So those are some of the things that were sort of high priority items. Last but not least, and most people can attest that the Stella Drive access to Trunk 7, that intersection is not very safe. And I do believe that there's been some proposed, now again, that part of this is provincial responsibility, but that as traffic increases on that area, that becomes a very hazardous intersection for a lot of people. So we would like to see sort of a resolution of the issue there off Stella Drive as it connects to the number 7 highway. And again, when we did our community input session through WSP, we had, I think, several hundred. Do you remember how many people commented on our?
Over 300, I believe.
Yeah, over 300 people participated in our community consultation.
About a minute, just to let you know.
Sure. This is kind of my last slide. So some of the comments, we had over 300 people who commented on our strategic planning during our strategic planning process. So the community is very much behind the initiative and trying to create a better community, more accessible community, and improvements to our community as we move forward. So apart from that, that is really the last slide that I had. So
Well, then you ended right on time, and we really, really, really appreciate that in this room. So thank you very much for that. Questions from, I'm in the wrong screen, questions from the committee, I imagine Councillor Hensby. I didn't want to say, I imagine Councillor Hensby's got some questions or comments, but I knew he would. Now remember, clarification, David.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for coming in today to make this presentation. It's been long overdue, and I want to thank the supporting staff you got with you, Kate and Gerard, and glad to see Peter Days here with the MP's office. My question is to you, Mr. Chairman, in regards to this presentation coming here forward today. What is the next step of having this be brought forward to the municipality's attention for possible inclusion for infrastructure funding projects? This is going to be a federal, provincial, municipal contribution, so I want to make sure that this presentation is given to staff and a report come forward and then get it on the list. I just want to make sure. Do you need a motion of this committee to do that?
No, so we don't need a motion of the committee. This will be forwarded to the appropriate staff, but I will also say, so it will go forward, and I will wait to make my comments until you're fully done.
That's the only question I had was process. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. Thank you. So last time I checked, there's nobody else on the list. I'll just confirm. Oh, Councillor Kent. Councillor Kent, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the presentations. It is exciting to have you come in. With my time before in council and now back, Councillor Hensby has certainly been a big champion of a lot of things good happening out that way, so it's really exciting for you. I can just imagine. A question I have is that you had sent us, through the clerk's office, we had received what looks like a longer version and a much more detailed Porters Lake Association Infrastructure Improvement Plan. That, I think this was a shortened version for 10 minutes?
Very much
Yes.
shortened and sort of highlighting the higher notes of the things that we think are most immediate to be addressed in the area.
Yeah.
But the report is in much more detailed. Yeah. it's much
And
more-
I think that I would just comment on that. I think that you've done I've not had the chance to go through it fully. I wanted to see what was going to happen here. But it's really quite inclusive, and I think that if you had an opportunity even to come before a community council or something of that nature to bring more information forward, I think that could be also helpful to you. But thank you for coming here. And I guess, Mr. Chair, to answer Councillor Hensby's question, what next? I say he's got his work cut out for him for getting that in front of capital projects. But, you know, this is a great start, so it's good on you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Just checking. Yeah, that's it for the list. So thank you so much, all of you, for coming in here today. I really appreciate that. I got 3 quick comments. One is, well, I guess 2. So I think you're probably aware that we have the Rural Pedestrian Realm Program motion that I made in this committee in December 2019, which is specifically about trying to create a federal, provincial, municipal program similar to the AAA bike lanes and the core. And my understanding as chair is that report's coming back any day now, like November, December, hopefully, before we get to Christmas. And this kind of what you're talking about is exactly what that motion is intended to do, that we want, if we're really going to live, walk the walk and talk the talk of having rural hubs as town village centers, then we need to make those investments. And we've certainly seen that in Muscatawbet Harbor and Hubbards and Middle Muscatawbet and around. So definitely you can watch for that, and that will have the funding mechanism and kind of the scope of what we think that we can do. And what was interesting in rural councillors and myself had a presentation on a draft of it is it's not as expensive as you'd think. It's not, I mean, maybe I've been here too long that I think $2 or $3 million in a community isn't that expensive, but it's like to make those manifest changes so you have sidewalks and can safely walk and bike along that main street. I think that's very important, and we're working toward that. So my one comment to you would be, we got to make sure that my friend Ken Smith is fully on board with this, because I agree with you about the crosswalk, but as you've seen with the crosswalk in Hubbards, province controls that across our provincial highway, and they're taking that one out right now, or they've taken it out, right? So we need to change the policy at the provincial level to allow for those crosswalks in the hearts of our communities, so that people can safely cross from the crosswalk goes from the sidewalk in Hubbards to the public library. that is in the middle of being taken out. So we don't want that. We all agree to that. We all agree that we want these things across these provincial roads and rural. So David and I will be happy to work with you to try and make that policy change happen because it's essential.
Thank you so much. And again, as I say, I think the report is in much more detail the things that we want. And we see opportunities again when it comes to encouraging business in regards to the various the land use bylaws. I think those go back to geez, I'm just trying to look here. Rural planning goes back to 1989, so...
I was in grade 11. I'm sure they're completely up to date and exactly what you need in your community.
That's right. So again, some work around that. So as I say, the PLBA is more than happy to work. I think that we've got some support from our business community who's here today, and I know from our study, the community engagement was exceptional when you're doing a study, having over 300 participants in that work during COVID too. So we're happy to see more development in our area.
That's great. And also, I had a message from one of the councillors. For the record, could you state your name again? Because I don't think we all caught that. You introduced the people behind you. What your name?
My name is Chris Atwood, so I chair
Chris
the
Atwood.
PLBA.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. Seeing no further questions, we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you for driving all the way in here, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you. Yeah, no, yeah. Pick up some bagels on the way out, that kind of thing. Anyway, all right, everybody, a little bit of focus. We got a big one coming up. So that closes presentations. We now move on. There's no information items brought forward, so no item 11. Item 12, 12.1 staff, 12.11 transit electronic fare options. Is there a presentation on this, or no, there's not. Staff is like, what are you doing to me? So who'd like to put the motion on the floor so we can discuss it? I know there's some questions. Councillor, we'll go to Councillor Kent. Got to hit your button so it lights up for you.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Transportation Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council adopt bylaw U112, amending bylaw U100, the users changes bylaw as set out in attachment D of the staff report dated September 8th, 2022.
Second by Councillor Oathead. Comments, questions, concerns? Presentation? There is no presentation. Any questions, Councillor Kent?
No, I don't think so.
We can come back to you if you change your mind. Your mic's live. I'm just waiting. Do you have questions? No? Okay, we'll go to Councillor Russell.
Thank you very much. I had a look at this, and I'm thrilled to see a lot of it. I don't know. That depends on the answers to the questions. We have a
Answer carefully.
right. We have a parking system downtown. Where when it was initially rolled out, it was not a problem. People would have to subscribe to a hotspot app and pay the $2 or whatever it is per month in order to be able to use the parking system downtown. And for that reason, I just didn't bother because I don't park downtown often enough to make use of that and have the extra $2 charge. I've since seen that we can pay on a per trip basis. I'm wondering when people download this app, will they be subject to the same type of thing where just for signing up to use the app, there is a per month charge, or is it basically going to be a free app and they pay for the transit fares only?
Thanks for the question. Mark Santulli, Manager of Technical Services for Halifax Transit. Mr. Chairman, through you to the councillor, the vendor in this case does not charge a fee to end users for the use of the app. They get paid through commissions on the sales that they make through the app.
Okay, thank you. Second thing is we generally have a lot of people who have data on their phone and everything is good and they would be able to use that. But there are some people who might be using transit who don't have data on their phone. These include people like tourists who come from out of country and they have roaming turned off, or they could be that generation that has data at home under Wi-Fi and just doesn't have it on their phone. Will the phone app still be able to be used, or would they have to use some other form of payment?
Good question. The app itself would require data connectivity to make purchases, but in order to activate products, they wouldn't need internet connectivity. So someone could theoretically, at a hotspot somewhere, purchase Fare products, and then when they don't have internet connectivity, activate it later, and it would work fine.
So they can walk onto the bus without having data?
Correct.
And use it there. Okay. And the final question, I think we covered this before, I don't remember the answer. How will transfers work? So at this point, someone would use the app when they get on the bus the first time. Would they have to do it a second time when they get on the second bus?
So the fare product, if we're talking about a single ticket, would be activated by the end user on the app, and it would have a time window that would include the transfer time.
Okay.
So that ticket would be active for at least the 90 minutes that a transfer is good for. More likely, it will be something longer than that to cover the time that the trip takes. And then on subsequent trips, while that ticket is still active, they would just show the same ticket.
Okay. Thank you very much. And to Councillor Mancini, I am happy. Thank you.
Oh, it is the end of days. Excellent. We'll move to Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor. That was one of the questions I had on my list. As far as those that don't have the app, will they still be using transfers?
Mr. Chair, through you to the councillor, yes, there's no plans to change any of our existing fare products right now. We're still going to have transfers. We're still going to have paper tickets and monthly passes and all the same things. It's just another option for end users to take advantage of.
Because I was thinking that there might be a savings, not a lot, but for paper, everything costs money and printing. But that's good to know because most of our seniors probably wouldn't have an app. Not to say that seniors don't, but some may not. The other thing I really liked was the 10-ride pass. It was $26.95, which is a reasonable amount. So this means they can, if they have 10-rider pass, they have the 10-rider pass, they can use that any day, anytime. So is that for the whole day? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, it would be good as long as, until they used up all those rides. There would be no expiration.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was one of my concerns because I thought, well, if it's only good for, say, 10 days. Okay, great. So that's really good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Stoddart. We'll move to Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, thanks very much. We're here to talk about the bylaw, the user fees. We've already approved this and looking forward to it very much, and I am interested, maybe you can confirm the launch date of it. But I was looking at attachment C, and I'm trying to understand, compare apples with apples, but you're showing our current use of fees, adult cash, senior cash, 10 tickets, and so on, and comparing it with the electronic passes now, and they don't line up exactly. So can you help me understand? I was trying to determine, is there an increase in fees here? That's the big piece here. Are we increasing our fees? Because it's not obvious in the report, well, at least not obvious to me, but I'm not the smartest knife in the drawer, so maybe you can help me.
Good afternoon, Patricia. Patricia Hughes, Director of Planning, Customer Engagement, Halifax Transit. And beforehand, I agreed that I would do the math questions. So it is slightly different savings depending on what you're getting. So what we tried to do was line it up so that it never makes sense to buy 2 single-day passes instead of a 2-day pass, or it doesn't make sense to do 4 week-long passes. The monthly pass is cheaper. So it should always line up that the larger product you're purchasing, the bigger discount you have. So that's kind of where the math is lined. So a single-day pass is $7, but if you buy 2 days, it's $12. So the more you go in for, the bigger discount that you have, or else people wouldn't buy the longer-term products.
So with the app, I can still throw my $2.75 in. I can still have a ticket, or if I have the app, there's no comparison, right? So I'm just trying to determine by this technology, which again I support, there's no increase to the fee. Because the last thing I want to see is increasing us fees while we're reducing our service level because of all the labor shortage and stuff. So bottom line, we're just packaging it differently. The more you buy, the larger amount, like most things that we buy, you're going to get the savings from that perspective. Yeah, good. From that, I'm satisfied. Excited date of launch?
Mr. Chair, through you to the councillor. So we had anticipated concluding negotiations with the vendor a couple months ago, but they have dragged on a little longer than expected. The vendor has just recently provided, I think it was just Wednesday or Thursday last week, they provided their latest language for the contract that myself, procurement, and legal will be reviewing, and we hope to have everything signed in the next few weeks. And then after that, it's a matter of 4 to 6 weeks in terms of rollout.
So 4 to 6 weeks, yeah. And I suspect we're doing an education campaign
Yes.
on folks. And what about our pilot program that we have for students right now for our schools, junior high schools? Will they be using the app, or are they still going to be issued cards?
There's no plans currently to integrate existing programs into the app until the app is up and running and we're able to kind of gauge the user uptake. And once we have more clear idea of the adoption rate of the app, then we can take a look at.
And that's something that's possible down the road, whether it's
Yes.
a senior's pass or student pass.
Definitely.
All can be incorporated, hopefully, but at first, no. Okay. Thank you both. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Hensby.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. My other question is any backup systems. You know, these apps are prone to sometimes not make it all the way through their beta testing and everything else. So I'm just kind of curious of what back of the house support there's going to be in regards to if it should crash on us and people expect to get on the bus and everything else and pay by the app and they don't have the cash with them. How are we going to deal with those?
Mr. Chair, through you to the councillor, the vendor that we are engaged in negotiations with is a proven vendor of this type of product. They've got glowing track record, and basically any sort of disaster recovery or failover would be on them. We personally don't have any sort of backup plan in place. So we'll be taking that up with the vendor to make sure that the system offers as much uptime as possible to ensure that we don't have any sort of service disruptions.
And is there a possibility this app can be adapted for possible extensions, for instance, our Metro Garage, you know, for Metro Park, or could it be used for MacPass to substitute whatever? I'm just kind of curious of if we're looking at transportation, there's other issues of, you know, going across the bridge or parking, you know, those who wish to not take the bus, but, you know, their own vehicles, whatever. Is any adaptability there for this application?
One of the big selling points from this vendor was their flexibility and their ability to integrate with other solutions. So we can certainly discuss those sort of opportunities with them to see if there are ways for us to integrate with other solutions. At this point, we haven't initiated those conversations yet, but it's something that we can definitely take to them.
Thank you. Because, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this committee has any opportunity to discuss that regional transportation study that's been proposed out there. So I'm pretty sure that transportation is going to be, especially by trans, is going to be probably a critical discussion on any regional transportation organization. So this is very curious how this is going to work in regards to our own app, but in regards to a regional perspective, I'd like to see more integration with other services. So looking forward to it.
Well, I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic of that discussion, but none of it's public yet. And, you know, basically, talk is cheap, show us the money. Anyway, moving on. From my point of view, I think this is great. I think the question that was asked by, I think, Councillor Mancini was critical to me is moving the other products in. You know, I started paying with stuff with my phone about 1.5 years ago, and now, you know, if a place doesn't have pay by tap or if it's a, you know, rewards thing that isn't in the phone, I'm not interested. it becomes part of your life very quickly. So getting to a place where we have, monthly passes and even the year-long passes and all the other products in there, I think is going to be really good. So excited to see this moving forward and strong support for it. So just to check to see if nobody else is on the list. So if someone would like to call the question. Question's been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, that's 12.1.1 done. So we're going to move on to, I believe I'm going to ask Councillor Stoddard, Vice Chair, to come and take the chair for the next two items that are mine. Thank you.
Sorry about that. We're moving on to 12.2.1, brought forward by Councillor Mason. Would anybody like to read the motion, please? Councillor Mason, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I move that Transportation Standing Committee request a staff report and recommendations for potential amendments to HRM bylaw T1000 respecting the regulation of taxis, accessible taxis, limousines, and transportation network companies, the purpose of which is to create a new category to provide legislation that relates to the tourism industry operating passenger vehicles with a maximum seating capacity of 8 passengers within HRM. I so move. Very briefly, there is a company in this space. They operate in a number of cities. In other cities, either the city or the province already has legislation to regulate them. In Nova Scotia, if you're 9 passengers or more, the URB regulates you. They're clearly not a taxi service. We define the network and Uber type stuff in taxis as taking you from point A to point B. They don't do this. So a regulatory gap has been identified that neither the province nor the municipality currently has rules to fill. So staff actually were very good, wrote this motion to address the issue, and I ask for our support to move this forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? Calling for the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Motion carried. Moving on to 13.1.1, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I move the Transportation Standing Committee request a staff report which outlines the process for short and long-term traffic diversion from municipal streets, full or partial, for the purposes of creating pedestrian-focused spaces, events, and activations. The report should outline any required regulation or regulatory changes, consult with consultation requirements, stakeholders, organizer, and municipal responsibilities and authorities, along with an appeal process. I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. So this is about closing a street to do a thing like Argyle or Portland Street on a weekend, or, and this is the big one, Bedford Row. Because what happens is we don't actually have a policy as a council. We don't have a process to follow. And they're all being closed using slightly different kind of bespoke rules. And what we saw happen this summer is we couldn't get to an agreement where has sufficient consultation been done, and are the abutting businesses and property owners satisfied that they've been adequately consulted. So I'm just a big believer in checklists. We need a checklist that says this is what we do, and when we've done it, we can make a decision. And clearly right now, because there's no process written down, the issue is if someone disagrees with the decision of staff, me personally, the appeal should be to council, and they should have to stand at the bar of council and defend why they think it shouldn't happen, and so, or should happen. So I ask for your support in this, and hopefully we can have it in place by next summer. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have Councillor Kent, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Mancini. I definitely can support this. I would like to just put an emphasis on the importance of engaging with our event organizers. They are really, really important piece of the fabric of our communities often, and longstanding organizational events and races and celebrations and such. So I think that for sure, my experience has been often that 1 week out from the event and someone's in a panic because a certain thing had not got done or was confused or not responded to. And I think that if anything we can do to tighten all of that up and have a very organized and set standard of process for events and organizations, but we don't want unintended consequences of putting up barriers as well. These, particularly some of the larger scale events, bring a lot of tourism and economic activity into our communities, not just into the municipality itself, but a lot of the local activities in the smaller areas within the municipality. So I look forward to seeing what comes back on this, and I certainly would support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Hensbeek.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Question I should ask in regards to how does the Traffic Authority be a participant in this process, as well as discussions we've had about security costs. If you have any activities or parades or events, and sometimes you're closing off streets, is going to require barricades and sometimes traffic control and everything else. How do you anticipate this motion to address those issues?
Speak to it. Staff don't have to. And I'll close
Councillor
here if I may.
Mason. Sorry.
Both mics are on, causing feedback. Let's see if I can, does the volume control work? Oh, it does, great. Okay, so to answer those questions, Councillor Hensby, thank you for them. The Traffic Authority was involved with the decisions to close all those streets, so they would be involved. I think this will probably sit in, it's going to be probably both planning and public works, but the CO will have to decide. As far as the security goes, right now, the Motor Vehicle Act has not been replaced by the Traffic Safety Act, which means that until those regulations come and it's proclaimed, we're stuck with having to hire police to close streets. That's how the Motor Vehicle Act's written. I did a motion on that, you may recall, 7 or 8 years ago. The fact that it costs $200 or $300 to hire a company that's trained for closing streets for construction, but you might have to pay a couple $1,000s for police in HRP land, part of Halifax, is kind of absurd, but the law doesn't allow us to use traffic control people for events yet. Hopefully that comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Do we have anyone else? The question the question has been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? The motion passes. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Yeah, just mine's dead right now. I can literally do it from Collins if we want. Here, roll over. Since we're done in 5 seconds. You're on. Oh, we're on? Oh, it's working now. I'd like to thank the technician in the booth for giving it a good swift kick. Thank you. I got a thumbs up. All right, so that concludes our motions. There are no in-camera items. There are no added items. Are there any notices of motion from the committee? Going once, going twice. No notices of motion. That brings us to public participation. There were no registered speakers for this as of September 29th, 2022. So I will call for the gallery. If anybody here wishes to speak, please come forward and do so now. You've got 5 minutes to tell us anything your heart desires about transportation. Second time, anyone wish to speak? Third time, anyone wish to speak to this committee? Seeing none, we'll declare public participation closed. The date of the next meeting is October 22nd, 2022. It should be a doozy. There's a October 22nd, 7th, 2022. And it should be a doozy. There's a lot of things that have been coming through agenda review that are on the cusp, and so I expect that Be prepared for some pretty heavy reading. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Adjourned by, I'm going to call it, was Councillor Kent. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.